Welcome, freaks. Welcome to Mother Supreme's review of episode 3 for season 6 of American Horror Story. So if you do not want to be spoiled as to the details of this episode, do not watch.
Mama's gonna give you love. Mama's gonna give you love. Mama's gonna give you love. Give you love. Give you love. Mama's gonna give you love. Mama's gonna give you love. Mama's gonna give you love. Give you love. Give you love. Mama's gonna give you love. Mama's gonna give you love. Mama's gonna give you love. Give you love. Give you love.
Freaks, very quickly, I wanted to inform you that every video I am going to feature one of your collection of American Horror Story. So if you want your collection to be featured in my video, and it must be for American Horror Story only, please send me your pictures to marygirlmoody@gmail.com. Include your name and your location, the location if you want, and I'll feature one person's collection per recorded video. So please know that these will not apply to the live streams, okay? Today's collection comes from Kieran, a fellow freak of American Horror Story. Take a look at his collection. Okay, guys, now episode 3 was titled Chapter 3. It is written by James Wong and directed by Jennifer Lynch. Now, this is the short description. If you want the long description, please fast forward to the number right here and you'll get the long description. And I do have some pretty good stuff after the description, so make sure you stick around for the end of the video. Basically, guys, the short description is the entire town showed up to search for Flora. Nobody found her. However, they found some, her doll that had been kind of ripped apart, replaced with pig parts. It's pretty gross, but the place is empty that they find the doll at. It's an abandoned farmhouse, but they do find 2 red-headed kids drinking from a pig. So, when the kids are taken by social services, the only thing the kids can say is the word Croatoan, which Matt says was basically a warning. So, by the way, we know the date is April 30th, 2014 because of the date indicated on Matt and Shelby's security cameras. So, this is where Cricket comes in. Cricket reveals that he lived in New Orleans, which, hello, is our New Orleans connection, because he saw Flora on the news, and basically for $25,000, he can help them find Flora. Lee whips a gun out on him. But anyway, he leaves, and he comes back. There's one point where he does a seance, and he flashes this card, and the butcher comes up, and even though, we still get a little bit of information at that point, we just still don't really know very much. It's also important to know that at one point, the producers interfere with the show. It does sound like Matt Bomer is asking Lee and Shelby the questions, but I think it's possibly Cheyenne Jackson. It's definitely not Evan Peters. So let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below. We get a backstory a little bit on Lee. She had a first child, but that child was taken when the child was 4 years old, when she went into the grocery store and left the kid in the car. We also find out that, Kathy Bates' character was Thomas and White. Her husband was the governor of Roanoke, the first settlers. He left, she stayed. Her people banished her into the woods because she would not help them get ready for winter. She met Lady Gaga, ate a pig heart, definitely qualified for Fear Factor, and came back and killed all those that wronged her. And I mean, that was pretty cool. So she spares her son, Ambrose, which is Wes Bentley. And then basically at the end of the show, Matt, Lee, Shelby, and Cricket go into the woods to try to negotiate to get Flora back, which all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Matt leaves the negotiations to go have a wonderful time with Lady Gaga while some people watched, if you get my drift. And so it ends the episode with Shelby calling the police on Lee that she possibly killed Mason. because I guess she's kind of getting back at him. So, all right. Long description, guys. Long description. Now, the entire town does show up to look for Flora. We don't get their interviews, which I think is very interesting. We only get pieces of, obviously Shelby, Matt, and Lee. At one point, we get the driver of the car, the one that Cricket is riding in, which I'm not sure if that's this one or that one. Maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But we don't get the police officers. We don't get their interviews. We don't get the interviews for the people who helped search for Flora. We don't get interviews from Flora herself. Okay, so just remember that. So we find pieces of Flora's doll, but it's cut up and some of the pieces are replaced with pig parts. They find another doll closer to an abandoned farmhouse, which when they go into the barn, they find two redheaded, I don't know, they look kind of like maybe in between like 9 and 12, drinking milk from a pig. And they call the police, social services come in, take the boys, and when the lady is talking to the boys, the only words that they can say is Croatoan. Now, I want to say that this was a great opening because the family called it a night after that. They had kept searching for Flora even after the boys were taken to social services. Mason blows up at Lee because he accuses her of making all of this up so that way she can make away with Flora. Then the police call while everybody is asleep, and they tell Matt that they found a body. So Matt goes to wake up Lee. They don't go wake up Mason. For some reason, they only go wake up Lee, not the father. And I think for some reason, like this happened one other time in the episode. Something big happened and they didn't go check on someone, or they didn't go talk to somebody when they should have. And that just perturbed me. That part right there, where they did not go and get Mason and tell him, hey, we might have found Flora's body. It doesn't matter what the conversation that happened before that. He had a right to know. And if Shelby, knowing the way she is, she would have insisted Lee to go wake up Mason and to go with them. Because when they go to the scene where there's the body, it is not Flora like you anticipate. It is actually Mason. So, which is weird because Mason, murder, kind of makes me wonder if maybe somebody's restarting that. I just thought that was, again, very interesting that nobody went and woke up that nobody went and woke up Mason to let him know, hey, we might have actually found your kid. So I still really think that Shelby... oh God, so many weird things happens on this set. So I really think that Shelby, Matt, and Lee are all murderers conspiring on this together. So anyway, quick tip. The date is April 30th, 2014. It is indicated that on Matt and Shelby's video cameras because Matt shows Shelby a video camera recording of Lee leaving right after Mason that night. And then Lee comes back, but Mason never does. And that's the night that he died. So as Lee, Matt, and Shelby kind of argue about trust, Leslie Jordan's character comes in, and his character's name is Cricket Marlowe. Cricket reveals that he lives in New Orleans, which, hello, it is our Coven connection, and saw Flora's story on CNN. He said a spirit whispered into his ear that Cricket could help them get Flora back. He goes through the house and explains some things to Matt and Shelby. Like, Shelby never questions Cricket either, and she fully believes in Cricket. Only Matt and Lee doubt Cricket and his abilities. They see him as a fraud. Now, Cricket says that Flora is not dead and that she's with Priscilla, a child who loved corn husk dolls. Teaser mentioned right there. And Priscilla died in the late 1500s. Shelby says that she has a feeling that Cricket can help them, and she gives him permission to talk to the spirits of the house. Matt probably would never have given his permission, but Shelby does. Now, this is important because at the end of this episode, we are introduced to Kathy Bates' character, the butcher, during this seance, and Kathy calls Priscilla the bastard's seed, and we have no idea who's Priscilla's parents. or what the dealio is behind that. Now, when Cricket is doing the seance, he flashes a prayer card of Saint John Galbert. He's the saint of mercy, the patron saint of all those that work and live in the forest. And he says that because he's got that card, Kathy Bates can do no harm to him. But she cuts the candle that they were actually using in the seance right down the middle. And Cricket shouts Croatoan, and the butcher busts out some windows in their living room as she exits. Cricket says he can take them to Flora for $25,000. Matt and Lee always doubt Cricket, but Shelby never does. Shelby thinks Cricket is an awful person for taking advantage of them on the situation, but she never doubts him. Before Cricket leaves, he whispers something to Lee. I don't remember what it was, but this is important, guys. It's important to know that this is the first time the producers interfere with the show. And it does sound like Matt Boomer is the one asking Lee and Shelby the questions, because he asks Lee, what did Cricket tell you? He starts talking to Lee and Shelby. I think personally it's Cheyenne Jackson. Now, it definitely does not sound like Evan Peters. More than likely it is Matt Bomer, but my gut instinct tells me that that's Cheyenne asking the questions. And we do get a glimpse of a man and a woman like fixing the scene with Lee. So we get two glimpses of the production people. Excuse me, I don't recognize them, but one of the gentlemen who's handing Lee a cup of water looks like Chaz Bono. It's not, but with the flannel shirt, the body type, the haircut, the sweet roundness of the face, it looks an awful lot like him. It's like they hired an actor to look a lot like Chaz. Lee explains to the producers that when she was 17 years old, she had her first child, Emily. And when Emily was 4, it was around about the 4th of July, she went to the store and left Emily inside her car. When she came back out, Emily wasn't in the car. So Emily was kidnapped. They don't have any idea what happened to her, and no trace of her was ever found. So Lee pays Cricket the $25,000 to get Flora back, which, honey, if you're going to pay $25,000 to get your daughter back, you wouldn't be in that situation in the first place if you would have just loaned Matt $5,000 so him and Shelby could have just moved the hell out of that freaking murder farmhouse. But you didn't. You hoarded it. And while I totally understand, I totally get doing something like that, but your brother needed you, honey. If my brother needed me like that, I'd be there for him. You need to woman up, and you need to help your brother and your sister-in-law next time. Don't be hoarding that money and making them live in some sort of murder farmhouse just so that way you can have an extra $5,000. Come on. Seriously, plot hole there. Or Lee is a real selfish sister. My brothers would never, ever, ever let me go one day in a murder farmhouse. They'd give me every dime they had. My parents, everybody that I know would do that. I don't know one person who would turn their back on me. I just still don't get that. How Lee had the $25,000 to give to Cricket, but Matt and Shelby couldn't leave the house because they had no money. They had money tied up into the house. Sorry, that was my rant. Cricket reveals to Lee that they need to know a little bit more about the butcher, which Cricket reveals that the butcher's name is really Thomasin White. And Thomasin is the wife of John White, who was the governor of Roanoke. Now, John went back to England and left Thomasin, his wife, in charge. The people banished her to the forest when she refused to let them go inland and get prepared for winter. She was out there for days. She was starving, thirsty, and then Lady Gaga came and rescued her. There was a whole bunch of mist there, people, in that scene. Lady Gaga comes and rescues her, gives her a pig heart to eat, and she basically tells Kathy that, you eat this, your soul is mine. So Kathy eats the pig heart, and to show her allegiance to Gaga. Thomasin, in my opinion, would definitely qualify to win Fear Factor. I just had to say that real quick. That was so gross. Anyway, while the men plot where to move the colony now that they have banished Thomasin, Thomasin comes back and she kills all of the men who opposed her and sent her out into the forest. She spares her son Ambrose, who was Wes Bentley. He begs for her to spare him, and she does. Now the colony moves inland. It's so redundant. And then they laid claim to the farm, or to the land surrounding Matt and Shelby's house. So Cricket takes Priscilla's bonnet and goes into the woods with Matt, Lee, and Shelby to get Priscilla. This is supposed to be the moment that Lee is paying for. But Thomason and her crew show up. Honestly, that was pretty intimidating crew. Cricket begs the butcher to give Flora back to them, and the rest of everybody will leave. Matt tells the butcher that they will make sure that nobody comes to the property, and Lee offers to burn the house down, which Shelby makes a huge stink about burning the farmhouse. Real quick, one thing I want to make in point here from Mother Supreme, Shelby offered up her house so easily to let Cricket do the seance. I understand burning a house is one thing and having a seance is completely different. Huge difference. But it's to get back your niece. Really? You're gonna make a huge stink about a farmhouse that you don't care about and you're gonna leave anyway? Who cares if it burns down? Why does Shelby care about the farmhouse being burned down so much? She makes this huge stink about it. Had to note that real quick, guys. So Shelby wants Flora back, but she wants to leave the house and she wants to stop and argue about burning it down. I mean, I just don't get that. So Matt all of a sudden decides to leave the group while Cricket is still in negotiations with the butcher. Shelby runs after him, and we find Matt making intimate relations with Lady Gaga while Chaz and Bono, his character, and his friend watch. And it's just not a great scene. It's just not a, it's let's just stop that scene. So Shelby literally is very angry at this, as all women would be. And she runs away, goes back to the house, and calls the cops on Lee to let them know that more than likely Lee murdered Mason. Lee and Matt actually get back to the house. Cops are waiting there, and they take Lee away in a cop car. And that's basically how the episode ends. Matt asks Shelby, why did she do that? And she's like, I don't remember. Because she confronts him about Gaga, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So she turns that around and says the same thing to him. So, friends, that is it for the video. Don't forget to check out my video where I go over, is Shelby a witch? And did Lady Gaga's song, Perfect Illusion, give away the episode 6 twist? I will be posting a part 2 to the Shelby Witch video soon, so watch out for that. Go to my channel and don't forget to subscribe and show me some love if you liked the video by clicking the like button. And Beyond the Horror is back on Wednesday. After the Evil is live every Sunday. And Mother Supreme is off. Wishing everybody an evil day. Bye.